Welcome back to Seahawks Forever, everybody. I'm Dan. Hope you all have had a terrific Christmas season so far. Thank you for your patience the last few days. I have been offline, sick as a dog, but back in there. They say the best ability is availability, and I'm back available today because we have a very, very important game to look ahead to for the Seahawks on Sunday in Charlotte, North Carolina against the Panthers, who are trying to win the AFC South, believe it or not, and present a formidable foe this Sunday that may line up as a very traditional definition of what we consider a trap game. But I've got 5 storylines for you that I'm going to highlight today that I think when we go through this together, you're going to feel pretty good about this matchup in Charlotte on Sunday. Talking Seahawks and Panthers up next on Seahawks Forever.
Welcome to the Seahawks Forever podcast. In-depth analysis on everything Seahawks. And now, here's your host, Dan Viens.
Through these pretty quick today, you guys, so let's get this out of the way. If you would please first subscribe to the channel if you don't already, hit that thumbs up button. That's the best way to help the YouTube algorithm you've heard so much about, but that is the best way that you can help support me as a full-time independent content creator, and it doesn't cost you anything more than just a click of the mouse. Helps put this video out in front of more people. All the other ways that you can help support me are listed and linked down below in the description, and that QR code over my shoulder, as well as a link down below, will let you donate directly, if you would like to travel expenses for sending me down to Mobile, Alabama again this year to cover the entire week of the Senior Bowl. Also, man, if you're a steak eater and you're just tired of whatever you do during Christmas season, I know a lot of people, we had this conversation around Thanksgiving. A lot of people just kind of duplicate Thanksgiving dinner, do turkey, or they do ham for Christmas. You want some steaks? Maybe you want to take care of somebody you forgot about at Christmas time. Well, they're still running that great special over at omahasteaks.com. Discounts site-wide and an additional $35 off at checkout if you use the promo code FOREVER. Also wanted to check in on our Sleeper Pick'em League. Just 2 chances left to go, and you'll see me there. Let's get rid of this QR code for this. You'll see me there at the top, but remember, I was in this thing all by myself the first week and got 11 right. Once you subtract that out, well, it drops me down into about 4th place. C. Hawkinson has been leading the way for weeks. He's still in the lead. And he's got a chance to close this thing out. Remember, the gift is their choice of an item from my online store. I have an update on that in just a moment. But if you want to give the Sleeper League, if you want to give the Sleeper app a try, it's the #1 fastest growing sports app in the country for a reason. There's a lot of stuff you can do for free in any state. If you want to get involved, though, in the games of skill, legal currently in 25 states, you can use that promo code FOREVER, and they're going to give you $20 right off the bat without having to make a deposit just to get you started. They're also going to match your first deposit up to $100, 100%, and you can help support me and potentially help me get an extension with this promotion into the offseason with a special deal that I have available for you. If you're interested in that, hit me up, DM, or the email that is listed in the link down below also. So I got to rally. I don't know if it's possible. As far as the online store goes, almost ready to fire it up. Again, thank you for your patience with that. Sorry I couldn't get it going in time for Christmas. There were a lot of moving parts there. But I just didn't like the platform I was using to begin with and didn't like the end product for you as much or the pricing. We're going to align with TeePublic moving forward, and that should be ready in the next week or so and attached down below on YouTube here and available with all my social links as well. Better product, lower prices, easier to manage, makes more sense for me. All of that stuff. So keep an eye out for that coming shortly as well. All right. You know what that means when I get the glasses on? It means it's time to get serious. The Seahawks back at practice today after taking Christmas off. So we should get some injury updates. Although I don't know what updates there are to get. I don't think we're going to see Charles Cross or Kobe Bryant for this game. And also don't think that they'll be missed as much as maybe we would have thought earlier in the season, because we've seen the job that Ty Okada has done in filling in for Julian Love at the other safety position. Then I thought Josh Jones, as I'm going to pat myself on the back a little bit, as I predicted he would, played really well in Charles Cross' place against the Rams. Now, the Seahawks gave up 4 sacks. They were ranked 32nd this week in the 33rd team's offensive line rankings. It's always going to be rough when you go up against the Rams. The Seahawks' 2 worst sack totals this year in individual games coming in both of those games. But I thought Jones did a really nice job, especially in some key plays. You watch some of those big plays down the stretch as the Seahawks were coming back to win that game, and Jones was doing a really, really nice job, especially when matched up against Jared Verse. Really held Verse in check. I think he had 3 quarterback hits and only a half a sack for the game. So great return on investment for Josh Jones. This is what they went out and got him for this offseason to solidify that swing tackle role in the event that anything should happen. And I think they'll be in good shape going up against Carolina this week with that, with him in place. And we're gonna mention that a little bit more specifically as we get into the 5 storylines that I think are most prominent, or at least that I'm the most interested in for Sunday's game against Carolina. The first one is this, and you guys have probably heard me push back against this concept at other times this year. But this is one where maybe I have to hit the pause button just for a second and stop and think, this does really, in a lot of ways, conform to the definition of what we consider a true trap game. First of all, you're coming off a very, very emotional victory, obviously, against the Rams, finally getting over that hump and beating a team that's been your nemesis for years. And then next week, in the Week 18 finale, you play your other arch nemesis, your other hump that you need to get over, the other monkey on your back in the San Francisco 49ers on the road in Santa Clara in a game that may shape up to be for all the marbles, the NFC West title and the number 1 seed in the NFC West. So it would make sense to be concerned about this game as a potential trap game. Here are a couple of reasons that I think we can have some level of confidence that it's going to be different. And granted, y'all heard me say on this show about a month ago that I didn't think the Titans game was going to be a true trap game because I just thought the Seahawks were motivated enough to keep things going, keep that number 1 spot in the NFC West. And the way they're wired and the way McDonald prepares this team, I just didn't see it coming. And yet, we saw for the first time all year, we saw the team kind of come out, slow start, looked a little flat early. And then we saw Cam Ward run around, make a bunch of plays. Tuck that away. We'll get that back to that in just a second. Reasons that I think the Seahawks will be able to avoid this trap. First of all, it's been the mini bye, right? It's been a week and a half, or will have been by the time they play on Sunday, since they played that Rams game. They've had more time to digest it and get through the emotions. They're not going to be coming down off of that heading into Carolina. They've also had a couple of days off. They've gotten time to spend with their family and really a good time to reset heading into this Panthers game. The other one is there's just so much at stake. There's so much at stake that I don't think they'll allow themselves to trip up. Also, Mike McDonald can just simply say, hey guys, remember that trip to Tennessee? Remember that trip to Nashville? Let's avoid that. Because he even said on his coach's show the next day on the radio that he thought they got off to a slow start. And that's the first time we've heard him use language like that in talking about this team. And here's another thing that's at stake. It's not just holding on to the NFC's number 1 seed and all of that. But here's my second storyline. This team is gunning for history in this game. Did you know that they've only won 13 regular season games twice in their history? They have a chance to do that, obviously, on Sunday. The other 2 times, 2005 and 2013. Those were pretty good years, right? Their first 2 trips to the Super Bowl, of which they won the second one, of course. I think that matters, and it means something. And it also means that if they take care of business on Sunday against Panthers, they have a chance to win 14 regular season games for the first time in their history. All right, one of the other big storylines in this game, Canales can coach. He can coach. I think we've seen some really promising advancements in Bryce Young's game. If you remember last year, he got benched for a time because things were looking so bleak. And as is the norm nowadays, when a young, highly drafted quarterback, and of course Young was the first overall pick, as soon as things don't look great, and especially if they lose their spot and they get benched for a spell, there was a lot of speculation last year that like maybe the Panthers are going to move on. Maybe they're going to be looking at quarterback again in next year's class, et cetera, et cetera. They gave Young opportunities again at the end of last season, and he looked like a remarkably improved player at that time. This year's been a little up and down, but lately he looks like that guy again. I'm going to go into a little bit more length in just a moment with my next storyline. But it's, Canales is a guy that I think a lot of us were caught off guard and were surprised that he got a job when he did. It felt like it was too soon. Being here in Seattle, under Pete Carroll, he had been the quarterback coach, but he'd never called plays. And it's not often that a guy gets a head coaching job when he's never even been a full-time coordinator, at least unless it was just in name only. Some of those McVay guys and Shanahan guys get jobs when they don't call plays on a regular basis. But it seemed like maybe it was a little too soon. And personally, I felt early on like the guy walks, talks, exhibits every quality that you'd look for in a dynamic young coaching candidate. You kind of compare and contrast him to what I've said about Clint Kubiak and how he's showing up on a lot of these lists as maybe, one of the top candidates to get one of these head coaching jobs in the offseason. I mean, you compare dynamic communication skills, personality, all of those things, presentation. Canales just runs circles around Kubiak. So I guess I may have underestimated a little bit the impact that could have, and that he was certainly able to make an impression. And then early on, there were a lot of things that we heard and saw that just sounded like deja vu a little bit, right? Like he was just going to sort of be a walking, talking carbon copy of Pete Carroll. But he seems to be getting this together. And I think that shows up in the fact that they've been able to beat some teams this year that were clearly better teams on paper. 3 of their wins this year are against the Packers, the Rams, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers by 3 points in each of those games. Now, the Tampa Bay game was just last week, and so you can excuse that one. Maybe that one isn't as impressive as the other two because it's not the same Tampa Bay team that we thought it was early in the year when they got off to that great start. Certainly not the team that beat the Seahawks in week 5 at Lumen Field in that shootout. But they played the Rams. Well, they played the Packers when the Packers were kind of on a roll, and they certainly played the Rams 2 weeks ago when they were coming off that Seahawks victory in week 11 and had everything on the line. I mean, that's an impressive win to play a team like that. And so, take it back to my first storyline, right? I'm not going to sit here and say it's not a trap game. There's a little bit of concern there because they did the exact same thing to the Rams. I don't think any of us saw that coming. It's impressive. And I think it also seems like this Carolina organization that has taken a lot of well-deserved criticism over the years for being so impatient, not being able to make decisions. I mean, the classic case in this game, right, with Sam Darnold going back to Charlotte where he played for 2 years is they had Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield on the roster at the same time and didn't stick with either one of them, and then found themselves having to make a massive trade up to get Bryce Young and reboot at the quarterback position. They have churned through head coaches, but it looks like, and their GM there, Dan, now I'm blanking on his last name, but he had a long history in Seattle working under John Schneider, and really seems to be sharp and has a great reputation as a player, personnel guy around the league. And so it seems like David Tepper down there in that ownership group is ready to have some patience. And Dan Morgan, it just came to me, have some patience and ride it out with those guys and let Young develop and let Canales develop. And they just need to add some more pieces, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. But let's talk some more about Bryce Young, because that's one of the other storylines here. He's really developing as a playmaker. Now, this is a guy that, despite his stature, like you see a guy built like Young, and you just expect him to be a scrambler. And he'd shown flashes of that side of his game early in his career. But it also seemed like he was very determined to prove himself as a pocket passer, and that was kind of the direction that Canales was taking with him. Well, recently that's changed. And I think we're seeing a combination of two things. Number one, this guy, and this is really the formula for Carolina getting to 8 wins to this point, is they're able to run the football. obviously, with Chuba Hubbard and Rico Dowdle. And Bryce has played game manager for the most part. I usually don't love that label, but I think it fits in his case. In his 14 games this year, he has thrown for under 200 yards in 11 of them. And surprisingly, he hadn't been doing a lot of work with his feet either until recently. And I don't know if this is a conscious decision on his part or something Canales has instructed him to be more open to. But he has 190 yards rushing this year. 107 of those have come in the last 4 games. And you can see it on the weekly highlights. He's moving around, making plays with his feet, buying time, and making off-script plays down the field, especially getting some of those young receivers that they have there involved. Xavier Legette and Tetairoa McMillan, obviously the first-round pick this year out of Arizona. And in that way, again, gives me slight pause to be overly confident in this game because it's a very similar formula that we saw Cam Ward and the Titans use to give the Seahawks a much more stout competition than we expected a few weeks ago in Nashville. That formula can work if the Seahawks go down there and don't play their best. However, I think the final point to make here is that matchup advantages abound for the Seahawks in this one. I mean, just by almost every measure, you see the Seahawks have an advantage in this one. Their defense going against the Carolina offense and their offense going against the Carolina defense. And I think it's a really well-timed matchup for the Seahawks as they continue to try to get that running game dialed in. It certainly made impact we saw against the Rams this last week, and we have seen signs over the last 6 games, 5 of those games over 100 yards rushing. We've seen signs there that running game is coming around. Might be kind of an ideal matchup heading into that 49ers game, a team that has also shown to be vulnerable against the run at times, and a team that I think you're going to have to run the football against and be able to control the clock, keep that offense on the field because they're playing at such a high level the following week. And so look for that to be an advantage this week. And also, they should be able to operate their under center and drop back play action game because the Seahawks are in the top 10, 12 in the league in most measures, EPA, DVOA, especially when it comes to under center and drop back. Meanwhile, Carolina's defense near the bottom of the league in both of those metrics as well. The Panthers pass rush, their pass rush win rate, 25th in the league, and their run stop win rate is 32nd in the league. As I mentioned, Seahawks are 8th in EPA per drop back pass. Carolina is dead last, 32nd in the league in EPA facing pure drop back passes. They're 29th in the league in raw sacks. They only have 25 of them. Derek Brown, the interior tackle, just outstanding tackle, who may be playing with a chip on his shoulder this week. He feels like he was snubbed for the Pro Bowl games. He leads the team with 5. Rookie Nick Scorton out of Texas A&M has 3.5. And then when you look at the DVOA numbers that take everything into account, the Seahawks still number 2 in total DVOA, just 0.2 of a percentage point behind the Rams. And those two teams still at the top of the list historically, and some of the best DVOA scores we've ever seen over the last 10 years. Meanwhile, the Panthers are 24th in this one in total DVOA. It just feels like a matchup where, and I know we say this every week, but if the Seahawks take care of the football, that they should ultimately, even if they get off to another slow start, they should end up being able to take care of business in this one. The matchups just favor them too much. Now, it's never a walk in the park. I mean, they've got a couple of competent corners. J.C. Horn, of course, the outstanding young corner on one side, and then Mike Jackson, the former Seahawk, on the other. And I'm going to finish with this, give you a little bonus, a 6th storyline. There's a lot of cool reunion stories here in this game, some that you may not even realize. Obviously, I already talked about Canales and his long history here under Pete Carroll and coming up through the coaching ranks. Damian Lewis, our old friend, the left guard, whose departure we lamented many, many times in free agency a couple years ago, got the huge contract in Carolina. Didn't make the Pro Bowl this year, but he's been playing at a very steady and high level the last couple of years there in Carolina. Mentioned Mike Jackson. He's been a starter and a real solidifying player for him there. Had a pick 6 a couple of weeks ago. I think, was that in the Rams game? Had a pick 6 in the Rams game, I believe. They picked off Stafford twice in that one. Travis Gibson, who spent the season last year on the Seahawks roster as well, the edge player. David Moore, although he's on injury reserve, and that was one that caught me by surprise. I didn't even think he was still in the league. It seems like forever ago that he was catching passes for the Seahawks. And maybe his biggest catch in his career was a touchdown pass in a game against the Panthers in Carolina years ago that won the game late. Gosh, what year was that? I want to say it was like 2016 because I was vacationing in Florida during that game, watching that game at a sports bar. And then, of course, the biggest storyline of all is Sam Darnold returning to play the Panthers for the first time since he spent the 2021 and 22 seasons with them. Talked about that on the show the other day, how something clicked for him there. Wrote about this on Seahawks on SI as well. First season didn't play well. That's why they went out and got Baker Mayfield as a free agent in the offseason for them to compete. Darnold was dealing with an injury early in the year. I think it was a shoulder blade injury, and Baker won the starting job, and then he went 1-5. So Darnold gets the job back at the end of the 2022 season. They end up releasing Mayfield, and Darnold goes, I think it was 3 out of the last 5 games, 7 touchdowns to 1 interception. He played better, and he mentioned it the other day that he kind of the light went on there a little bit, got a chance to step back a little bit before getting another opportunity to play. One of those wins at the end of that season, 2022, if you remember, was against the Seahawks as well. He didn't have a huge game in that game, but no turnovers, threw a touchdown pass. I remember watching that game and just some of the throws he made and thinking, okay, you could see why this guy, even then, you could see why this guy was the 3rd pick in the draft. So those are my storylines. What do you guys think the biggest storylines are? What did I miss, if anything? Tune in tomorrow. I'm going to talk about the one thing the Seahawks need to do to win the Super Bowl this year. Yeah, people are starting to allow themselves to talk about that, and I am too. I'm going to ignore any jinx or curse possibilities. I think there's one thing that if the Seahawks do this one thing, I consider them the favorite to win the Super Bowl. I really, really do. We'll talk about that tomorrow. And then, of course, on game day Sunday, may or may not do a pregame live stream. Check in for that, but certainly we'll react to the game immediately afterwards. And then we'll get into 49ers week. And, of course, then we'll get back the Christmas holiday, of course, change some of the schedules around. So no NFC West mixtape this week. No Hawks Film Lab this week. Although if you want to go back and look at the stuff in the Rams game that came out earlier in the week, please do that with Bryce Coots helping me break down all 22 tape. So keep an eye out for those. In the meantime, follow me on Twitter at Seahawks Forever. Check out nwforever.com. You see it down there at the bottom. Take you to the Patreon community, Northwest Forever. That's where all my content lives, and we get together as a community. We watch games together in there in the Discord. You get access to all of my content. And also, if you're looking for a cool place to watch the game this Sunday, head down to Soto, Fast Fashion Brewing on First Avenue, next door to Hooverville, across the street from Showbox Soto. Some of the best craft beers in Seattle. They have a big screen. They have great watch parties for the game. Say hi to my buddy Matt Storm over there. Really proud to have those guys aboard as a sponsor. Again, all the other ways you can support me are listed and linked down below in the description. Until next time, forever and always, go Hawks. Thanks for watching, everybody.